All right, so today we're diving into something a little different. Someone sent us this recording of a local radio show.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's called Past Week, Next Week.
Okay, so not like a national broadcast or anything.
Nope, definitely local. And that's kind of what we're interested in,
Yeah.
seeing what we can find about life and culture from this unique source.
I like it. Yeah, it's like peeking behind the curtain, getting those perspectives you wouldn't normally hear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And who knows what hidden gems we might uncover, right?
Right.
So first, let's introduce you to the voices you'll be hearing.
All right.
There's Chris. He's the pun master of the group.
Hmm.
Always ready with a joke.
Oh, so is that just his personality, or do you think it's also a way of dealing with the news, finding humor in the tough stuff?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Actually, we'll have to see how that plays out as we go through.
Yeah, keep an ear out for that.
Okay, then there's Paul. He's a former state representative, so he brings that storyteller vibe to the news.
Oh, interesting. So he probably has a lot of personal connections to the events he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that could really bring a different dimension to the stories.
Definitely.
And rounding out the trio is Boogie. He's like your average guy just navigating life,
Yeah.
the ups and downs.
The everyman relatable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone we can all probably see a bit of ourselves in.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and I almost forgot. They also have this mysterious texter who chimes in throughout the show.
Oh, wow, a texter. So we don't even know who this person is.
Nope. Adds a little mystery, don't you think?
Yeah, could be interesting or could be totally distracting. We'll see.
We'll see. All right, so this particular episode kicks off with the song Wildfire by Michael Martin Murphey.
Wildfire, huh?
Yep. Seems like they pick a song each week and try to connect it to current events.
Yeah.
But even they're struggling with this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard to find the right soundtrack for what's going on in the world.
Right, they toss around a few ideas, the California wildfires were happening at the time, but they eventually settle on this idea of American civilization like burning down.
Oh, wow. A bit dramatic.
Yeah, a bit, but hey, it's radio, right?
True.
And then they have this funny realization that Michael Martin Murphey might be a one-hit wonder with Wildfire.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember that song, but nothing else by him.
Exactly. It makes you wonder what that's like, having your biggest moment also be your only moment.
Yeah, that's got to be tough, especially in the music industry.
Okay, so let's move on to some personal stories.
Yeah.
Chris shares this anecdote about his New Year's Eve, which almost ended in a bar fight.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But luckily, things calmed down before it got out of hand.
Sounds about right for New Year's Eve, honestly.
Uh-huh, right? And then he casually mentions that his wife has started making homemade pasta.
Okay, random. But I kind of love those little details. Gives you a glimpse into their lives outside the radio show.
Totally. And apparently she's getting pretty good at it, too.
Nice. So maybe a future pasta making segment on the show.
Now, Boogie had a very different New Year's Eve experience. He ended up at a party where there was underage drinking going on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Sparked a whole conversation about parenting styles and how to handle those situations.
Always a relevant topic, especially these days.
For sure. Then he goes on to share some pretty disastrous dining experiences.
Oh, no. What happened?
First up, a disappointing Pizza Hut order that was supposed to be a deal but ended up costing way more than expected.
Ugh, the classic bait and switch. I hate when that happens.
And then he recounts a date night at Sunset Grill where the food was just awful.
Like, how awful are we talking?
Think chunky artichoke dip, bland pasta, and a ridiculously expensive bill.
Oof. Not exactly a recipe for romance.
But here's the thing, they didn't actually complain because their waitress, Tizzy, was this sweet older lady who was so proud of the food.
Oh, that's actually kind of sweet of them sparing her feelings.
Yeah, it shows a different side to them, right?
Definitely.
All right, and here's something you might relate to. Both Chris and Boogie revealed that they're attempting dry January.
Oh, the annual test of willpower.
Right, and it sounds like it's not going so well.
It's never easy, is it?
Chris has this realization that boredom is one of his main triggers for drinking.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, when you have nothing else going on, it's easy to fall back on old habits.
Exactly. It makes you think about how much routine and comfort play into our choices, right?
Absolutely.
And Boogie's over here trying to resist those giant margaritas in his favorite Mexican restaurant.
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
Right. Especially when you're trying to be good.
Exactly. It's like those temptations are everywhere.
All right, let's move on to entertainment, shall we? Chris is raving about the new Wolfman movie.
A remake, huh? I'm always a little wary of those.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But he says it's actually pretty good, a fresh take on the classic.
Well, Alex, you never know. Gotta give it a chance.
He also lists off a bunch of TV shows he's been watching. Juror Number 2, No Good Deed. Shrinking apparently has that Ted Lasso feel-good vibe.
Oh, interesting. I've heard good things about Shrinking.
And The Jackal, too, so he's been keeping busy.
Sounds like it.
But then things get a little more serious. The news of Jimmy Carter's passing prompts Paul to share a story from his book.
Oh, wow. So his book is coming out soon.
Yeah, sounds like it's almost ready. And this anecdote is about meeting Carter at the 2008 Democratic National Convention.
Wow, what a moment.
He talks about how impressed he was by Carter's humility and dedication to service, even after leaving office.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that leadership isn't always about power and ambition.
Right. And it's especially poignant considering this conversation's happening right before Trump's inauguration.
Oh, wow. So there's definitely a contrast there.
Yeah, you can sense the unease in their voices, like they're not quite sure what to expect.
Makes sense. A lot of uncertainty at that time.
But then we get this really sweet moment. Paul mentions receiving some gifts from listeners.
Yeah, that's nice.
Someone sent him a Wonder Woman figurine to complete his Mego superhero collection.
Oh, that's awesome. I love those little acts of kindness. It shows how much people care.
Exactly. And he also got a Christmas album from a local musician.
Wow, so they're really connecting with their community.
Yeah, it's like they're part of people's lives.
That's special.
Okay, get ready for this. Paul took a road trip to Palm Springs.
A road trip. Nice.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He drove his friend's car all the way there.
Oh, so not even his own car. Bold move.
Right. And his travel buddy was Trent Skaggs, a former state representative who now teaches Sunday school.
Okay, that's an interesting pairing.
Right. Makes you wonder what kind of conversations they had.
Hours on the road. Gotta talk about something.
They had some amazing Tex-Mex in New Mexico, saw the Grand Canyon, and did a tour of all the classic Hollywood star homes in Palm Springs.
Wow, sounds like quite the adventure.
Back in the studio, it's time for their weekly news quiz, and guess what? They answered all 5 questions correctly.
No way, seriously?
Seriously, the questions were all over the place. Melania, Trump skipping the inauguration, Karen Bass being out of the country during the wildfires, John Fetterman meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago,
Wow, they really covered it all.
Steve Bannon feuding with Elon Musk Cuba, being removed from the state sponsors of terrorism list. It was a whirlwind.
Sounds like a typical week in the news, honestly.
And of course, they couldn't resist adding their own jokes to the answers.
Well, that's what makes it fun, right?
Okay, next up is their headline segment, where they basically come up with punchlines for real news stories.
Oh, I like that.
So one story is about Karen Bass being out of the country during the wildfires, and they joke that everyone knows the mayor's supposed to be the first one out there with a shovel and a hose.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right? Leading the charge.
Then there's this story about a guy in Missouri who got pulled over for drunk driving, and he told the officer he was the DUI instead of the designated driver.
Oh my God, that's classic.
And they ended with a story about a man suing a razor company because he cut himself shaving, and Paul jokes that he'll be suing after his next manscaping incident.
Okay, it's too funny.
All right, and now for the big reveal. Paul announces that he's written a book about the show. It's called Past Week, Next Week, Misadventures.
Wow, that's awesome. I bet it's hilarious.
It's getting great reviews. People are saying it really captures the humor and heart of the show.
That's so cool. It's like they're taking their passion to a whole other level.
Chris and Boogie even read some excerpts live on air to give listeners a taste.
Oh, that's a great idea.
One excerpt describes the texter as a character so shrouded in mystery that even Sherlock Holmes would struggle to take a crack at him.
Uh-huh. Still so mysterious.
Another excerpt talks about how prank calls were the building blocks of our comedic empire.
Oh man, prank calls can be so funny when they're done right.
There's also a really sweet section dedicated to Of Boogie. Their biggest fan, they praise his enthusiasm and dedication.
Oh, that's awesome. It's nice to see them acknowledging their fans like that.
And they don't shy away from the behind-the-scenes mishaps either. They even recount the great coffee spill catastrophe of 2022.
Oh no, I can only imagine.
And in a touching gesture, the book ends with a letter from Paul to Of Boogie, thanking him for his support.
Wow, that's really sweet.
So yeah, we've covered a lot of ground here. What are your thoughts so far?
I'm really enjoying this. It's so interesting to hear about this little local radio show and all the stories they share.
Me too. And it's making me think about how we all consume information these days.
Yeah, like, are we missing out on these kinds of gems because we're so focused on the mainstream media?
Exactly. And is there something special about the intimacy of radio that we're losing in the digital age?
It's a good question. We'll have to explore that more when we come back.
All right, so we're back, wrapping up our deep dive into this local radio show, Past Week, Next Week. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty surprised by how much depth and humor we found.
Yeah, it's like we stumbled upon this hidden world full of quirky characters and relatable struggles.
Right. Like, who knew a show about local news could spark so many bigger questions?
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is how it makes you think about information consumption. You know?
For sure.
Like, it's so easy to get stuck in our own bubbles, right?
Yeah.
Scrolling through the same feeds, reading the same headlines.
Totally. And are we missing out on valuable perspectives because of that?
I think so, yeah. Like, what if the most insightful, thought-provoking stories are happening right under our noses, but we're just not tuned in?
That's a good point. And it makes me wonder, have we lost something in this shift to digital media?
Maybe, yeah. Like, there's a certain intimacy to radio, hearing those real human voices coming through the airwaves.
Yeah, it connects you to a specific place and time in a way that online content just doesn't.
And it's not just about the information itself, it's about the delivery, the humor, the personal touches.
Right, like they're inviting us into their world, sharing their experiences with us.
It's like we're all sitting around a table just chatting and laughing together.
And that's what I think is so special about Past Week, Next Week. It reminds us that even in a world that feels increasingly divided, we can still connect with each other.
Yeah, find common ground through shared experiences, those moments of joy and sorrow that we all go through.
And it also highlights the power of community, how people support each other in big and small ways.
Like, think about a Boogie, their biggest fan.
Yeah.
He represents that connection between the show and its listeners.
It's a beautiful thing to create something that resonates with others, like that brings people together.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question, something to think about.
Okay, I'm ready.
What hidden gems are you missing out on in your own community? Are you tuning into those local voices, those unique perspectives that might challenge your assumptions?
Because sometimes the most insightful stories, the most valuable connections are right there waiting to be discovered.
You just have to take the time to listen.
And on that note, that's a wrap for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.